Hey guys, and welcome back to another lesson. Today I'd like to talk to you about borrowing chords. Now this is a scary sounding name for something that ultimately is fairly straightforward. It just means mixing or playing together chords taken from different scales, usually scales built on the same root. I'm gonna go into detail and explain what this means and how to do this, but before we do so, let me just play a little demonstration for you so you can get an idea of the kind of sounds that you might get by borrowing chords. And this is just a little synth-funk track I made for the purpose of this lesson. So let's start by having a listen, and then we'll stop, delve into the theory, and talk about applications. This lesson, by the way, is built in a way that both beginning and intermediate players should be able to follow along without too much, I hope, hassle. So let's have a listen. Okay, so let's start our discussion of the idea of borrowed chords by building a C major scale. By the way, the piece I played is written in the key of C. Now, I'm going to number the notes on the C major scale, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which is just 1 again. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build a chord on the first degree on C by adding the third and fifth degrees. The resulting chord is known as a C major chord, and it's played in what's called the root position. We're going to take this chord and move it up the C major scale. Now this, by the way, is called planing, moving something up within a scale. What this is going to do is it's going to generate a set of chords of a different chord for each of the different degrees. So we're going to get a C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and C major. Now, a lot of harmony really deals with the way you move between the chords built on the different degrees. For example, a very common motion is a 5-1, meaning the chord built on the 5th degree, a G major, which leads to a chord built on the 1st degree. It has this kind of very classical sounding sound to it. Another kind of progression or motion is a 4-1. The chord built on the 4th degree, an F major, to the chord built on the 1st degree, a C major. This is also called sometimes a plagal cadence. Now it would be useful to play inversions or just revoice some of the chords, which means that we can take any of these chords and move the notes around in octaves. So I can take this C and move it up an octave, and it's still going to be a C major chord. I can take the C and move it up here, this is still going to be a C major chord. Or I can even play something like this, which is still a C major chord. I can also double the notes. I'm doubling the C here. So it will make things sound a little bit better. For example, this is a plagal cadence, 4-1. Now we can do the same thing with other types of scales, and one of these is the C natural minor scale. This is also sometimes called the Aeolian minor or Aeolian mode. Just names, don't get too excited about it. And we can do the exact same thing. We can number the degrees, the notes, and we can build a chord on the first, third, and fifth degrees of the C natural minor scale. And this is going to give us a C minor chord. And we can plane it up, we can move it within the scale. What this will do is it will generate the following succession of chords: C minor, D diminished, E flat major, F minor, G minor, A flat major, B flat major, and C minor. And again, we can look at different sort of progressions. We can do a 5-1 or a 4-1, just as an example. Another example, we can do a 2-5-1. This is kind of a famous jazz progression. A 2, which would be a D diminished in the C natural minor scale. A 5 would be a G minor, and then a 1 would be a C minor. Now, the entire concept of borrowing chords really means that when we play in one of these scales, let's say a C major, and build progressions built on the C major scale, we can borrow or take chords from the C natural minor scale. That's also called a parallel scale or a parallel minor. Parallel in the sense that they're both built on the same root. That's what the word parallel means. So for the remainder of this lesson, I'm going to just show you some ideas and walk you through some progressions and show you exactly where I borrow what. Now, to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to color code the chords I put on the screen. Chords in blue are going to be from the C major scale, so C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and so on. And chords in red are going to be from the C natural minor. So any of these chords. Okay, let's start by looking at the plagal cadence. A 4 to a 1 in the C major scale. We're going to confine ourselves to the C major scale, really. And one thing we can do is, after playing the 4, we can borrow the 4 from the parallel minor, which would be an F minor. And this has kind of a nice, kind of sad, beautiful tone to it. In fact, we can replace the F major completely with the F minor. Now let's take something a little bit more complicated. Let's do a D minor, which is a 2, to an F, which is a 4, to a 1. And we're going to replace or borrow the 4 from the natural minor parallel C minor scale, which is an F minor. So we're going to play D minor to an F minor to a C major. Kind of gives you Life on Mars kind of vibes. Let's do a few other interesting things. When you look at the F minor chord, it's kind of similar up to really 2 notes to an A flat major chord. Again, these two are from the C natural minor scale. And this is, again, similar to within 2 notes to a D diminished. So these kind of 4 chords are almost interchangeable, and you can even actually go between them. And resolve to the root of the original or the C major scale. So one thing we can do is we can play a C major to an A minor, to an A flat major, a C major to an A minor to an F minor, or a C major to an A minor to a D diminished. Or we can just maybe go from one chord to another. C major, A minor, A flat major, D diminished, C major, right? F minor, D diminished. So we get this kind of very nice motion as we go between these different chords. Incidentally, you can think of this is really a 6-4-2 in the C natural minor. You can also play a 6-4-2 in this C major, which would be an A minor, F major, D minor, and then maybe you can play a 5-1. So six, 4, 2, 5, 1. Another interesting thing you can do is you can stick a C major in between each of these three chords, A flat, F minor, or D diminished. And you can use this to go up or down the scale. For example, C major, D diminished, C major, F minor, C major, A flat major, and then we can do a B flat major and a C. In fact, the B flat major leads kind of naturally into a C major. So we're borrowing the B flat major and we're going back to the original C major chord, scale and chord. We can do this in the opposite direction. Again, we can go down. Pretty beautiful motion. Another thing that we can do is we can use the C minor chord and put it in between regular quote-unquote major progressions. For example, let's say that we do a C major, C minor, D minor, G major. So we're playing a 2-5-1, but we're then inserting a 1 from the parallel minor, which is a C minor. Another cool thing that you can do is you can use a pedal note. You can pretty much hold either a C or a G as your uppermost note as you go between the different chords. And this makes things sound a little bit more cohesive. And to just give you an idea, let's play a C major to an A minor to an A flat major, this is a borrowed chord, to a D diminished. Now I'm holding the C up here. This actually makes this a C half diminished 7th chord, but instead of thinking about it in that way, you can just think about playing a D diminished, just thinking in terms of regular triads and keeping a pedal note up here. Or maybe we can do a C major to an A flat major to a B flat major to an F minor. pretty beautiful just by keeping this pedal note on top pressed. Another thing you can watch out for is, or think about, is the way in which your bass moves. So we can go back to this progression I played, a C major, A minor, A flat major, and D diminished. And instead of going back to the C major with a bass of C, we can climb up like this and repeat. So have a listen. Now this kind of motion really, in my opinion, is pretty beautiful, something that you should experiment with. You might find it fits within your own songs and chord progressions. One last thing before we conclude for the lesson. The C minor chord really lends itself to sort of resolving in kind of interesting ways. So again, using an upper pedal note, we can do a C major, a C minor, and then a D. This is really a D minor with a pedal note, or you can think of this as a D minor 7 if you're a little bit more advanced. And then you can play let's say a G with a C pedal note. Something that sounds a little bit better, even in my opinion, is going from a C minor to what's known as this is an F major over the bass of G, which resolves to the 1, to the C major. So and maybe playing with the bass a little. So I hope I've given you some ideas of how to borrow from the parallel minor, right? We've played in C major and we borrowed chords from the C natural minor. Now you can go back to the progression or to the little piece I played at the beginning, and you can challenge yourself to figure out which chord is borrowed and which chord is in the original C major scale, and maybe even recreate it yourself as you play along with the piece. That's it for now. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I will see you next time.